If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel.
If you want news and rumors that appeal, welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. I'm your host, the Innkeeper, and this is our live call-in talk show all about the Wheel of Time. Now, today, before I bring in my guests, we had some fun stuff happen on Twitter. I don't know if you noticed this, but it happened to occur right after I made this tweet, just saying it looked like we weren't going to get any news today for another Watt Wednesday, but just make sure to show up here at the Dusty Wheel for tonight's show. And soon after that, I don't know how quickly, but we got a tweet from good old Watt on Prime. They said, "See you tonight, Innkeeper." The funniest part of the "See you tonight, Innkeeper" moment had to do with the fact that fans kind of freaked out just for probably like 3 minutes until Watt on Prime added some clarification. There was a lot of "what does this mean" moments, which I thought were really funny as I was trying to think about how to reply. Now, if you notice, you definitely had Watt on Prime just moments later reply and say, "Before anyone gets too excited, we just meant we're looking forward to watching the Dusty Wheel tonight." So that was that was a lot of fun. Now they did add a little note here, which was fun to, for example, Geekieri, and when they were talking about Watt on Prime watching everyone and perhaps being in chat. And I like how they dropped this note. Sounds like a new mystery for Geekieri, to which everyone had a lot of fun talking about Geekieri, trying to figure out who in chat could be those from the Wheel of Time and Amazon Prime. And this last note was a lot of fun. Just a fan saying that Watt on Prime learned real fast how quickly we dissolve into theories when we're left unchecked, to which they replied, "And we love that about y'all." So we love that too. Thank you very much to Watt on Prime. Really appreciate you communicating with us. You know, we apparently you just did asked fans out there on Twitter what podcast they should subscribe to. That's still ongoing right at this moment, and they're having a lot of fun. So yeah, if you're running a Wheel of Time podcast right now, go look up that tweet and make sure you let Wheel of Time and Amazon Prime know you'd like for them to follow your conversation. And one final note, I did want to bring up the fact that I think today is Rosamund Pike's birthday. So happy birthday to Rosamund Pike. She said this in an article, I think it was last year at Balance Media. She said, "It is really wonderful. I'm a mysterious character who comes into a small town and takes 5 friends on a journey that will change them forever." And that's a perfect way to talk about hopefully this year, 2021, which we hope is the year of the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. Now, one final note before I bring my guest in and we start talking all about today's topic, which is Season 2 Speculation. I want to remind everybody to be back here on Sunday. We're going to be doing a cast spotlight all about Zoe Robbins as Nynaeve. And then we're coming back the following Wednesday to do a game night. These are a lot of fun. I don't know if you were at the last one. We do some like sword forms or ins competitions. I think we did one. It was all about, has RJ said this, or who did RJ say this or not say this. Anyways, we have a lot of fun playing Wheel of Time related games and segments with our guests. We have a lot of new guests with us, and that's going to be a blast. And that being said about new guests, tonight I have 2 new guests with us. And so without further ado, let me welcome to the show all of my guests to talk all about Season 2. Hey, welcome everybody. How you doing? Cheers, cheers. Morgan, podcast of The Dragon. for our viewers, up in the left-hand corner, up in the right-hand corner, we have David Greene from Easing the Reader, which did make me laugh when I read that name, David. I love that. And of course, in our lower left here, Rebecca from the Reading the Pattern YouTube channel. Rebecca, as always, awesome to have you here. In fact, I purposely reach out to you, I think, every time we're doing one of these breakdowns of the seasons. You were with, I think it was with John and I when we did this last one, so I'm looking forward to what you have to say. And, of course, Jen Isgro from the Talk Around Riyadh podcast. Jen, awesome to see you.
Hi.
Awesome to see you.
You too.
So before we dig in to what is the topic for tonight, before I ask you to kind of lay out how you believe that the Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime, Rafe and his team of writers should actually be taking on or tackling season 2. Before I do that, why don't you tell the fans, give us a quick summary of what's going on at Talk Around Riyadh. What can they expect if they look you up and want to follow you?
Talk Around Riyadh, we are called the Wheel of Time Showcast. We are a podcast that deals with a lot of show news. Basically, the first half of our show is show news. Second half, we pick a topic from the book series, and we'll go into a deep dive on that. We are very spoiler heavy, so if you've not finished the series, you probably don't want to listen to us. But if you're looking for news specifically on what on Prime, we're a good podcast to listen to.
Yeah, look, you just did a weights and measurements episode. Right?
Yeah, that was a very special episode. That was a Tom special. He really wanted to get into the world building of the weights and measures of Brandland. So yeah, that was our last episode.
That's awesome. Yeah, make sure you can follow. I think I have links for all of these content creators in the description, so you can make sure to go follow them either during or after this episode. And Rebecca, let me go on to you. What is it that fans can find at Reading the Pattern?
Okay, well, if you like speculation like we're doing tonight, I definitely do a lot of videos where I try to piece together all of the news and things that we know about season 1 production and then make predictions about how I think that's going to break down. So I've broken down like the first 4 episodes so far, and then I'm going to like catch up on that and move on to the later ones as we get more information. So I do a lot of that. I do some spoiler-free stuff for the show. So if there's people who are new that you want to kind of introduce it to, I do some spoiler-free stuff. And I do a spoiler-filled reread of the books. So I've completed The Great Hunt just recently. And
that's awesome. And, yeah, like I said about Rebecca, if you go back and look on the Dusty Wheel, we did a breakdown of kind of what we thought season 1 would look like, just similar to this show. So make sure and go check that out if you haven't seen it. Now up to you, Morgan. Tell people about the Podcast of the Dragon.
Well, I'm a spoiler-heavy, deep dive type podcast. I do shows about characters, themes. I'm basically doing a reread for material. So think lit lectures by someone who is utterly unqualified, who's more interested in like empathizing with characters and figuring out what RJ was thinking about when he was writing it, rather than talking about things like, allegory and juxtaposition. And I'm right now, I've got one more episode about the end of the Great Hunt, so I'm about to record that, and I'm doing it about Rand and his daddy issues and coming to terms with being the dragon. And then I'm going to take a month off so that I can get ready to kind of hit the ground running to do shows about the Dragon Reborn and get my Patreon going and do all that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm doing.
I love Rand and daddy issues. I love it. I want to listen to that one. And David, why don't you end us off here? What about Easing the Reader? What can you tell people about that one?
So we're a fairly new podcast. We're 2 published writers that kind of break down the books from that kind of angle of how he's written it and the kind of themes and the structure. But the twist on it is that I've read the series quite a lot, and the other guy has never read the series before. So we're kind of easing people in as we're going through the books. We're just about to start The Great Hunt. We had a special guest on in the last episode, who you may know. And it's good. We're completely spoiler free, so it's a task in biting my tongue quite a lot, where my co-host will say something, it'll be like, that's a very interesting point that you've got there.
Yes.
You might want to remember that for the future.
I got to be a guest on Easing the Reader, and that is difficult. It is very difficult to stay spoiler free, but it's a fun episode. Go check it out. It's the last episode. We tackled the end of the Eye of the World. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. And so, Okay, so everyone here is watching. Hopefully you are here ready to speculate about Season 2 of The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime. And how did we get here? That's a great question. Let me kind of take us down the road, and then we'll dig into what my panelists believe is going to happen. Basically, thanks to all of the super sleuths out there that have been following all the news, we have a good idea that at least around episodes 7 and 8 of the first season involves things happening in Faldara. And because of that belief that perhaps the books, as far as at least the Eye of the World, it's going to take us to the end of Season 1 around Faldara and events that happen there, we figure why not imagine what a second season might look like if that's our starting point. And why do we believe there's going to be 8 episodes in the second season? Because Rafe said at the Jordan Con, the Zoom bomb that Rafe had, actually that he was working on 8 episodes for a second season. So we decided to take this concept of 8 episodes with an ending point somewhere around Faldara and decide to map out what we could do. Now, before we have Jen jump in, I want to show everybody quickly what fans thought and where fans thought we should begin this. So on Instagram, I threw up some questions here. I asked, where should Season 2 of The Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime begin? Fans were, threw out some ideas like Rand already on the road to Tyr. Fans didn't really like that idea per se, but they really liked the idea of it beginning with the Shanchan actually taking over Falma and the city and actually ending there. That was one of the ideas that I thought was interesting. And there were some other ideas here that were kind of, I think, popular. This one's preparing to leave Faldara to retrieve the horn. Was an obvious one. And another popular idea was the Dark Friend Social. That would make a great starting point. A lot of fans loved that idea. And also Selene. But I think Selene got a good answer there because I made both possible answers there yes. So that's 100% fans think that Selene, we should begin with Selene. And the last 2 popular ones was a flashback to the War of Power. And I think On the Ocean with the Shanchan and the Sea Folk. So here are some fun ideas about where we could begin. I like these. So I kind of want to ask the panelists here before we dive into this, and people that are watching us in chat, the beginning scene. What's your favorite idea for a beginning scene? And let's start with you, Morgan. Do you have like a beginning scene for the Season 2? Just the scene itself. Where should we start?
I do actually. I think that there should be 3 boat scenes. I think it should start out with the Aes Sedai sailing up the river from Tar Valon. I think it should end the first season with Maureen sending a pigeon to Swan so that they know, it's set up for them to go. And then Bail Doman sailing to Falma and then the Shanchan. So it's like a boat-heavy opening scene.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. Dave, what do you think? Where in your mind, what's the best opening scene for Season 2?
Well, if they don't have the prologue in it, I will cry because I love that scene. I would love to see it, but I think a good opening scene would be a Padden Fane flashback when he's in the cells.
Sure.
Because yeah. I think from what I've kind of keeping up to date with what's happening in Season 1, he's not going to be in Season 1 all that much is what people think. So I think obviously he's going to be one of the main kind of villains going forwards from Season 2. So I think it would be a good idea to kind of go back and kind of see how we got to that point. Yeah,
that's an interesting idea, touching on Fane there. And I know I see a lot of people loving the idea in chat here about the Dark Friend Social, and I'm seeing a lot of chatter about that. There's something about starting a second season a little bit darker, perhaps, than they start the first. Maybe let's jump over to you, Rebecca. First scene. What do you feel like would be a great first scene?
It's definitely hard for me to come up with something outside of that Dark Friend Social. That's definitely where my mind goes. It's such a strong opener to the book, and I think it could definitely work in the show too. I mean, that said, if they don't do it as the opener, they could do it at almost any other time. So it's not like they have to cut it out if they don't want it as their opening scene. I did like that all the ships going in different directions idea that Morgan had. That was cool too. It'd be a cool visual.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. Berserker just said in chat, Dark Friend Social should be the end of Season 1. I could see that as a cliffhanger also. That does make a great cliffhanger, and beginning with the on the water, basically. I like that a lot, the kind of mix of those two. Jen, to you, where do you think that Season 2 should begin?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I had Dark Friend Social as the end of Season 1, kind of as an ominous way to let you know what's in store. So for the beginning of season 2, I do like the idea of the Shanshan. I love the idea of like not knowing who these people are to start the second season. So I'd actually like to see like a Shanshan ship coming in and just like obliterating another ship in the harbor,
Right,
like with the Damani and all that. And you're just like, what is even going on? Who are these people? I just think that's a good segue into season 2.
If they're keeping the Shanshan. Right? Like, can you imagine? Yeah, you're like, so that is the question of the night. What are they going to keep? What are they going to cut out of what comes next? And I love these ideas. Thank you very much to those who are in chat. Again, if you're here enjoying this live Wheel of Time discussion, please consider liking the video so other fans right now tonight can find us and will come over and join the discussion. And if this is the first time you've ever been here, consider subscribing. It does matter. If ask all these content creators when you know that fans are engaging with your content. It just is you wake up trying to make better content the next day. So we'd love to have you here as viewers at the Dusty Wheel. Now, I think we're all set. Why don't we jump into this? And Jen, why don't you start us off? Jen's going to give us an idea of what her mapping would be for the next 8 episodes here in season 2. And we're going to have fun kind of breaking this down, reacting to it, bringing in some chat here. And we'll go around robin here, around the panel, and find out what everyone's ideas are. But let's start with Jen. Go for it.
Okay. Doing all 8 episodes, right?
Yeah, take us through it. Right. Figure. Obviously, everyone's got to go through there. So yeah. Keep that pace in mind. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm starting it with the Shanshan attacking the ship. Then we're going back to Faldara. All the stuff that happens there. Rand training. The Aes Sedai arrive. Rand meets with Swan. Lan gives Nynaeve his ring. Then the attack on Faldara. Fane escapes. I want to see Ingtar saving Rand from the Murdral. Then I want the scene when Leandrin tries to compulse Rand in the dungeon. Then they split up. So the girls with Min go to Tar-Valon. The boys with Loyal go after the Horn and the Dagger. Also, in this episode, we would see like Nynaeve and Egwene starting to train with the Aes Sedai and find out Nynaeve's going to take her accepted test. Also, Egwene maybe starts to have dreams. And I actually have Varen telling her about being a dreamer. And also then... But the boy's parents still sensing the wolves. Maybe he goes into a wolf dream with Hopper. And I also want to see Ingtar burying the Shinarans that he finds and giving them like a proper burial. I think that's important for him. And then I wanted to end episode 1 with the Murdral nailed to the door. That would be a good ending.
Wow, that's your episode 1.
It's a lot. I know, it's a lot. I tried to...
I love it. Yeah.
With figuring out how much could fit. Because I feel like when I watch a show... A lot of stuff can happen in an hour. So
no. So you're getting to the Murdral being nailed to the door, and obviously those who are watching, we're not going to try to spoil, by the way, the entire show here. But there may be some spoilers coming up, obviously, for the next couple of books. And if my guests are going to spoil something far, far in advance, we'll throw a banner up for everybody. But just keep that in mind if you're watching. So nailed to the door, I like that. So yeah, give us, before we react here, I'm kind of interested what the panelists are going to say, but get us through the first couple of episodes here, and we'll kind of start taking a look at what you're deciding. Go for it.
Okay, so the next episode, I have Egwene having the dream of Lanfear standing over Rand. I have Maureen, Lan, and Varen leaving them, and then they arrive at the tower. They meet Elaine, Galat, and Gowan, also Elida, and Elida questioning Min. Then we have to see the girls training. We see Nynaeve take her accepted test. The boys are still going through villages. Rand sees a woman in white in the window. He tells Matt and Perrin he could channel. He shows them the banner. I want to see Maureen studying at Elias and Van Dien's house. Also, then with the White Cloaks, Jeffrey and Bornhold have a scene with Carradine and the questioners. And then I have the episode 2 ending with Rand, Huron, and Loyal getting separated from the group. I don't know, in this scene, in mine, I don't know if I'm doing portal stones. I was thinking, like, can she pull them physically into Teleron Riyadh? But that's what I was kind of thinking of using instead of the portal stone. I don't know if she could actually do that, though.
There's mechanisms. I mean, you could get them there. She could get them there potentially, but
right.
you're thinking about dumping portal stones. But you still like the idea of breaking them off.
Yes.
Any thoughts so far from the panelists between these first 2 episodes? Is this? I'm kind of curious. Is there any reaction, like any surprises, or anything that you think is maybe is too much at this point?
Well, I consider the idea of getting rid of the portal stones, but I think that Flicker is kind of would be a really cool and important scene to do. So I debated it and decided that we should probably keep it.
Yeah, Portal Stones, that's going to be an interesting kind of initial grab, and I don't want to necessarily dive too deep in everyone's here, but I'll be honest, that is one of the things on my chopping block is at least the Portal Stone journey that Rand and takes with, and, meets, Lanfear and such. That's on the chopping block for me. So
I think you could do like one and not the other. Like you could have the Portal Stone flicker scene and not do the journey, with where he meets Celine, if you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking was keeping the one, getting rid of the other, to kind of speed things up. Yeah. Okay. So Jen, take us through your next episode. Go for it.
Okay, then I have Rand, Loyal, and Huron trying to figure out where they are. Now I have Rand fighting Balsamon and then meeting Celine. I have Balsamon mentioning Tyr because I feel like I want to get Tyr started in everybody's heads. So then I have them, same thing. They get ahead of the Dark Friends. They steal back the horn and the dagger. This is a long episode too. I have them getting to Kyrian. Celine leaves them. They find Tom. They get attacked by Trollocs. I have this episode ending with them getting back to the inn and the inn burning. So then
Gotcha. Okay,
everybody else, I have sorry, that's just the end of the episode. But I have Perrin taking over, leading the group with his wolf stuff. Varen catching up to them. I have them meeting the Aiel. I actually have that Aiel being Gaul. I don't know if that makes any sense, physically in the world, but I have being Gaul. And he mentions he who comes with the dawn. Then I have Leandrin telling the girls the boys are in trouble. They go through the ways. Egwene and been captured. And I also have the scene where Leandrin goes back to the tower and the 13 Black Aja ransack the Tiran'riel. I think that would be cool to see
want to show the off-screen?
in the show.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, and that was it.
I like that. What's interesting is that you were stuffing a lot in episodes, and if they can do it and go that fast, you haven't had to cut too much out so far, from what I've heard. Do you feel like you've made any severe cuts so far to the overall plots?
Maybe not so far, but later on I do.
Later on you do? Okay. Sure. Give us the next episode. I'm kind of curious for people that are watching us in chat. Would you cut the Portal Stone? If you could cut this first Portal Stone section out, just not have Rand and Huron and go there, whatever, would you do that? Would you make that choice to speed the plot along? Thumbs up if you would. Thumbs down if you came in here thinking no, they can't cut anything, and that's definitely not one of those things I would cut. I'm kind of curious what chat will say. But yeah, give us your episode 4.
Okay, I have Rand saving Huron from the fire. The horn and dagger are gone. The rest of the crew shows up. Then I have, this part is weird. I have Balsamon in a dream, telling him to come to Tyr again. But also, Fane sends him a letter telling him he's going to Falma. I'm not sure about all the Fane stuff because I feel like it kind of peters out into nothing. At the end of the Great Hunt. He never meets with Fane. So I'm just not sure how that would work on the show. But anyway, so I have them going to studying Shanghai and then using the ways to get to Falma. I cut the flicker scene, even though it's awesome and I love it. I just feel like it doesn't really need to happen, and so for the plot. You're
using waygates to get them there, then? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I have Fane presenting Turok with the horn and the dagger. We see Egwene as a Damani. I have Egwene at this point starting to enter Tel'aran'rhiod and doing some things, but nothing big. Ever seeing Perrin there in a dream. I feel like I'm going on forever. Nynaeve opening the collars. We see Bornhold again. He's going to Ameth Plain. We see Maureen attacked by a drag car. And then Tom finding Dina dead and killing 2 Dark Friends. That's how the episode ends.
Jen, what's interesting, Jen, is that I was like, wow, if they can pull this off, the ability to get all of that into the first 4 episodes would be extremely impressive, to Rafe and his team if they decide to go that way. Yeah. So, give us what's a little bit broader step for the other side. You said there's cuts coming. What are the cuts you would make in the next 4 episodes? Because it sounds like you're getting them to Falma. And
so,
what's your next vision of that? Then you're obviously not ending in Falma because you're just at episode 5.
So I'm basically doing the end of book 2 in episode 5, and then doing all of book 3 in episodes 6, 7, and 8, which is tight.
Wow. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of what I actually cut here. I was trying to literally have it be like everything happening in tier with the Shanshan, but there was other stuff happening in book 3 that I couldn't jam in, because I feel like Rand does nothing in book 3, until the end.
That's true.
So that was like, it's just everybody else does stuff.
Your broad scope here, and I want to ask everyone that's watching here, your broad scope is cover books 2 and 3 in season 2, basically.
Yes.
And keep the overall plotting the same, basically, but cut out just some quick cuts to get us there. And so you would have the blowing of the horn in Falma.
Yes. In episode 5.
In episode 5 would be your blowing of the horn. And then you would get everyone to tier. Are you structuring this in the way of all of those plots of them going back to the tower?
I don't know if that makes
the healing
any sense.
Of
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
And then are you also having them escape the tower and meet the Aiel before they get to tier? And then with the girls...
them meeting the Aiel like in tier.
In tier, okay. So you're
Meeting
rushing up. So I'm kind of curious for those of you in chat. Again, this is the question that Jen's posing, which I think I'm kind of, my idea is really close to yours, Jen. Should Amazon on Prime, Watt on Prime, actually try to stuff 2 books into this next season? I'm assuming the ending that you're proposing is the end of The Dragon Reborn. Is that where you're ending?
I cut Belal. I cut Belal out and just made it Balzamon in tier, and that's it. And because he doesn't fight, I don't have him fighting Balzamon in Falma. I have the White Cloaks, the Shanshan, the Heroes of the Horn, and then Rand. After that, Rand leaves to go to tier by himself, and then everybody else just kind of finds their way there.
Okay.
And then he fights Balzamon in the stone.
Everyone follows him to tier.
In their own way they normally get there, right?
Are there any other significant cuts from a plot standpoint that you would do, or that you have kind of planned?
Not really. It's just kind of like rushed together in the couple of episodes.
Well, yeah,
but not really. I kind of have everything there. Oh, okay. I can tell you the end. Do you want me to tell you the end?
Yeah, and then tell us your ending scene. Yeah.
All right. So the end, I have Fane with Pedro Nial kind of putting seeds of 2 rivers into his head.
Okay.
Like maybe he finds out what happened with Bornhald from. I have Valda playing the buyer role. So maybe he's reporting to Niall, and then you see Fane kind of scuttling in, giving him like, oh, we should, the Dark Friends are from the 2 rivers and all that. And that will be the end of the season.
And how deep did you have for scenes for actual Black Aja? Are you feeling like they need to kind of build those out, or are you feeling like they're just kind of keep as much as we have in the books?
No, I think I have like her, shielding them in the same way, because I have her getting the Tirangriel, the dream Tirangriel from Varen. I think that's why I have Varen. If Varen's telling her about dreaming in the beginning, then Varen gives her the Tirangriel. I thought that was like a good thing.
So you're still going down that road
together. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm along with you in this. I know I was asking Chad a question. I probably lost it. Thumbs up if you want 2 books in one, or if you think that's too much, and thumbs down if you were like, no, I don't want to see both of those books. So thumbs up across the panel. Oh wow! So we have a lot of panelists that are pushing that idea. That's gonna be interesting. If you happen to be watching us here on Twitter or on Facebook or Twitch. Hopefully, I guess Twitch you'll keep going, but hopefully you've enjoyed a sneak peek on Facebook or Twitter. And if you want to watch the rest of us break down and hear what the other panelists have to say, come visit us over here on YouTube. We'll be here for the next hour talking all about how we would arrange what is the next season. Now I'm curious, any general reactions from the panelists for what Jen's approach here? David, do you have any thoughts of, is this kind of how you were imagining, or do you think it's not, we couldn't go this far, or they couldn't handle that much?
Mine is 2 books in one season, but it's quite different, wildly different, in fact. I think I might get stoned, by people in the comments.
Well, yeah, we will find out because chat will let you know. There's a lot of love in chat right now. I'm kind of going back and seeing lots of thumbs down. Maybe it's half and half. Maybe it's not as dominant for this idea of 2 books in one season. So to kick us off from here, how about we go over to you, David, then, since you're ready for us to stone you for what your mapping looks like. You're looking at 2 books in one season here. How would yours be different? Yeah, maybe start us off there.
Yeah, so mine will be different, mainly because, like, looking at it from a production standpoint, if you combine, like, the reason why I think you have to put the 2 books together is because they're very similar books. They hit on a lot of the same themes. They're both kind of on the road quite a lot. The endings are very similar. So I think that it has to change a little bit, because you don't want to have 2 seasons where it's and Fights of Forsaken, maybe even 3 seasons on the road where it's Fight of Forsaken. Also, as well, from a production standpoint, if you go to every single city then that's in the 2 books, I think it's about 7 separate cities that they end up going to. Not small cities, it's big cities as well. It's Tarvalon, Faldara, Falm, Ilion, Ter, Camlin as well. So there's a lot to kind of go in through that. So also as well, there's some things that are probably going to get left out of season 1 that need to come into season 2, like the Trackhands being introduced, Thane probably being introduced a bit more, Alida being introduced. So all this kind of stuff has to come in as well. So the way that I would kind of have looked at it, I've done it a few different ways, and I can see a few different ways of doing it. But what I would do is I'd follow the main structure of the Great Hunt, but then bring a lot of elements in from the Dragon Reborn into the bits, because a lot of Dragon Reborn happens when they're on the road. So I'd bring a lot of those parts in to organically into the Great Hunt. The other problem is with it, if you do it as in the first 4 episodes Great Hunt and the last 4 episodes The Dragon Reborn, is that Rand, the main character of the show, isn't going to be in the second half of the season. So you have to kind of place him in parts of the season as well. And so with that in point, I would cut the Sean-Chan out completely.
Oh, wow. You would drop the Sean-Chan completely from the books, or are we talking about from just this particular season? Would you still mention them tangentially then?
Yeah, I'd mention them and foreshadow them. And I mean, there's an easy way of doing that with Wheel of Time, is through dreams and through Min's viewings and stuff. You can foreshadow them. You can even have the Black Ajar mentioning them as they're kind of working with them. That's the thing that I would replace them with. I would replace them with the Black Ajar as building that up a lot more. The reason I'd cut them from this season is because they're only going to be in a couple of episodes, and again, it's that kind of production thing of it. You have to create a whole culture, the look of them, how they act, the actors get contracts, and they're basically going to be in it for 2 episodes, 3 episodes, and then they're gone for about 4 seasons. Apart from the mention.
That's an interesting point of how much work they would have to do to build the Sean-Chan if they weren't going to stay. So you're right. I think you would want to leave them as a more dominant element, at least get more use out of them than just kind of bring them. That's an interesting point. Quickly, I'm seeing a lot of people in chat, like a lot of what the moments. So I'm kind of curious. You don't have to tell me all the details, but Morgan and Rebecca, are the Sean-Chan in both of yours, or have you cut them out also?
I kept
They're in
them.
mine.
Okay, so Morgan cut them out, and Rebecca, they're in yours. Okay, interesting. I'm really excited. Okay, David, cutting out the Sean-Chan. So then where are you focusing? Kind of how are you taking us through those? You said you have 2 books mixing, but no Sean-Chan. So what are you doing?
So basically, it's just to increase the Shadow and the Black Ajar as a threat, because the other thing as well, when you combine them 2 books, it means that a lot of the characters are kind of bouncing around the world quite a lot. They're going here, they're going back here, they're going back here, and what have you. And what I would do then is I'd spend a lot more time in Tarvalon with Egwene, Elaine, Nynaeve, and Min. And actually, what I'd do is I'd probably bring Matt into that and get him healed earlier. And he would because Matt is my favourite character in the Wheel of Time, but I cannot stand him in book 2. I just can't stand him. It's just every time that I read it, I'm just like, what? Oh, I just can't. I can't do it. But he's great in book 3, and I think there's a way where you can just kind of basically have his arc from book 3 throughout the whole of season 2. So that's what I would do. The first episode, I'd kind of spend a lot of time. I'd kind of bring in the Trackhands, because I think they can all meet at Faldara. They're all on the way to Tarvalon with in that kind of with the Amrilyn and all that kind of stuff. And the later scene as well, then, that we're probably not going to get in season 1 with Rand, that could all be folded into the first episode. And to kind of just build up this kind of intrigue of this larger world, the Black Ajah, what is, and all these different Ajahs and everything. And then I think what you'd have then is it'd end with Thane stealing the horn and leaving Faldara at that point. So it'd be a very kind of heavy episode with him in it to introduce him as a villain. The second episode then, it would be kind of like, the party's kind of splitting up. The girls going off towards Tarvalon for training and all that kind of stuff, and then Rand and them lot going on. And I think at the end of the second episode, I would have the portal scene, but I'd probably combine the 2 portal scenes into one, because I don't see why there's any reason why you can't really have them both together as that one and have the same kind of effect from it. And then that would kind of cut Rand away from the rest of the party as well for a little bit to kind of have that kind of thing. And I would introduce Celine at that point as well. So,
question for you, Morgan. The Shan not being in it.
I'm not going to cut them. I would keep them.
You keep them, but they're cut out of season 2?
No, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're keeping them. Sorry, I thought you were cutting. Okay.
No.
So I'm kind of curious, and what your reaction would be. And I've seen this in chat. And I wanted to ask the panel, but maybe I'll start with Morgan. Egwene has such a key moment there, or there's a formative moment. I don't know, key is not the right word. There's a formative moment here when she's actually becomes a Damane. Without that, can you see her still kind of forming those, or can Egwene be Egwene if that doesn't happen then? And David, I'm not saying that you plan for that never to happen, but if without that experience, is it still fine? And can we move forward with Egwene and actually get her to the end as we know her?
I suppose that they could, but Egwene being Damani, as she's sort of, Rand's counterbalance in the stories, and being Damani is her version of being in the box. And so I feel like it's important, and I suppose they could do it in a different way, as she is a prisoner multiple times. But I think if they were going to do it a different way, then they would need to do it while she's a prisoner of the White Cloaks at that point. And I don't think they're going to spend the time to develop that in season 1.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, David, are you thinking to do something similar? I mean, she does, like Morgan says, she does become a prisoner multiple times. Were you thinking having her become a prisoner of the Black Aja still? And having that happen?
I think all that would still happen. Like I'd basically just increase the Black Aja's role in the book altogether. Because obviously they pop up at the end of. Book 3 is kind of weird in that way, because there's a lot of build up and intrigue of these things, and everything kind of just happens over the space of the last 10 chapters when they all get into tear. So what I'd do is I would just build them up, because it's a big thrust that goes on for for a very long time after that, actually, and it's something that could carry it. And that kind of whole capturing side of it, that could easily happen with the Black Aja as well. That's my
that's what I was thinking of when you said that. Like, I guess you could potentially try to kind of fit that in. So sorry, I know I interrupted your. How would you map out the next 2 here? Where are you taking this? Because I'm really now I'm on the edge of my seat. Like, where are you going without the Shan-Chan? Like, where are you getting us to mid-season here?
So mid-season is more tower stuff. So I'd introduce a lot more. Like, obviously when Maureen kind of goes off for a little side quest when she goes to the cottage and all that kind of stuff. What I would do with that is something that always kind of puzzled me was in the Wheel of Time is why what Swan Sanchi and Maureen did was so bad to everyone else. And I always felt it was a little bit underdeveloped in a way, because it just kind of happens where everyone's like, this is the worst thing that's anyone's ever happened and all this kind of stuff. So I would actually spend a little bit more time on that plot, on those 2 of what they've been doing and why it is actually such a bad thing. And then even bring the Red Ajar into it a little bit more, because what is it that they do other than capture false dragons? Are they like the police of all of the Ajars? Because that's what it seems like when someone steps out of line, they come into it. So I'd kind of spend a bit of time developing that, and then you could bring in the Black Ajar hunt into this bit. Obviously, then in episode 3, I'd have the testing of Nynaeve and the healing of Matt at the same time, and actually kind of intercut it. A bit like that bit in The Witcher. I don't know if you've seen The Witcher. The bit where she's getting transformed into like with a magic picket and that kind of bit. I'd have that kind of scene in it, and then I'd end it with Rand and the children cow, and I'd actually have him kind of that real temptation days. We've got all this power, and I think that's the point where I would have him kind of going a little bit rogue and saying like, I need to kind of go and deal with what I'm becoming.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing this. And maybe I want to ask Rebecca this idea of focusing on, because I do like this. I like the idea of digging into the Black Aja and digging into Maureen and Swan. How are you reacting to this? Are you, because I'm almost looking at it like a map, and I'm cutting off that top left-hand, upper left-hand corner, and focusing on everything else that happens, because it does take them down to Kyrian and all these other places. Do you like what's coming to you as David's explaining to us?
I do think that there should definitely be a focus on the Black Aja, and I think you need to think about what you're doing with characters like Swan, and I think there needs to be some kind of a, White Tower related plot in season 2. So I do like that idea. I did do it in a different way in my outline, so I'll save that. Yeah. But in general, I do think that's important and definitely serves a really crucial purpose.
Yeah, anyone have a reaction? Am I getting this feeling, Jen, Morgan? Do you like this idea of is David convincing you that cutting the Seanchan actually could be beneficial to the overall plot to the story being told?
I don't know. I think that it could be written well. I've come up with it in a different way. I think he has fair points. So I don't know that he's wrong necessarily.
Okay. Jen, how are you feeling about this? Because yours was more kind of keeping all those. Do you feel any attachment to having the Seanchan? I know this. I know everyone in chat's going to think that this is appealing to me because of Barney and blowing the horn. But I'm curious, how are you feeling about this?
I like the Seanchan. I like you were talking about the collaring. I think that is important. And it powers her up too. I could see a way where you can cut them out. And in doing this exercise, I really understood just throwing whole plots in the garbage because you can't figure out how to work around it. But I personally would want to keep them, but I'd be interested to see it without them. That would be a lot different.
Yeah, I'm coming around to the idea a little bit here. So, David, will have you kind of take us a little bit further down, and I'll probably have you might have to speed up a little bit, kind of what your thoughts are. Okay. But I want to ask chat before I jump back to you here. Thumbs up so far. Are you convinced? Cut the Seanchan for season 2. Thumbs up. Thumbs down if you're not convinced yet, and we'll see how far David has to take this. So give us kind of like, because I'm seeing where the momentum's going here by mid-season for you. How do you get now from there to the end of yours?
Yeah, so basically, there is still a way of keeping the Seanchan in it. I was just kind of looking at as a basically production kind of thing. Is like, is it worth the cost? I mean, the easy thing to do is just to move everything to Tear and just combine both of the endings of book 2 and 3 into Tear, but that's an awful lot of things to go on at the same time. Like, it'd be insane how things going on, but it could happen. So where would we be at the story now? Like, is basically with the Black Ajar and everything being more of a thing, the plots from Dragon Reborn would come into the structure of. So basically, what you'd have Rand and then Perrin and Moraine and all them kind of people more or less on the same path from the Great Hunt, but then you'd have the other characters on the path from the Dragon Reborn, and it all meets together in Tear. And then if you want to bring the Seanchan into that as well, or just have the Black Ajar and their forces kind of replace that, you could do either way. But I would also agree with Jen, like I would also cut Bilal out of it as well and just have Ishmael as the main villain, because I think he's probably the only Forsaken that I'd actually cut out of the whole series. And it's just that's it. All the other ones are fine except for him. And then so that's basically how I would do it. I know we're kind of running out of time there. I'd also bring the Ale in quite a lot more as well.
Okay, so you would actually so you're digging more into the Aiel less into the Shan-Chan, possibly holding on to the Shan-Chan. I don't know if you're reacting or you're saying that after you saw what chat just did. the thumbs, you'll have to go back and check it out. There's a decisive feeling in chat right now about the idea.
I know there could be. I mean, it's like it is one. I mean, there is a way of doing it, but I just think like there's a lot to do. Then I just don't. I can't see them being two separate season endings, basically like one halfway through the season and then one at the other half. To end it, I would do something a little bit different as well, because obviously Lanfear then becomes such a big figure in books 4 and 5. I'd actually end it with her maybe visiting Shale Gull to speak to the Dark One.
Interesting, yeah. I like the idea. We don't see that. I like that idea a lot, because there's this feeling that we only get the interactions between Lanfear and Ishamael, really, other than with as far as kind of like overarching plans. Obviously she meets with other Forsaken. So I like the idea of focusing on the Aiel, focusing on the Black Aja, focusing on Moraine and Suan, and really keeping it almost this side of the map, if you will, over by Faldara, and taking us and actually developing a lot of those plots instead of necessarily rushing through some plots. So by the way, Alex just said trying to bribe Matt by offering more Lanfear. Look, I don't think that's that at all. I think it's a fantastic idea. No, that's what a compelling idea. Who else? Other cuts other than the Shan-Chan? Do you see any big cuts from that? Because it doesn't seem like you really need to.
No,
I don't feel like you need to cut much other than if you cut the Shan-Chan to get through.
I don't think so. I think Ilian might get cut. I mean that could be changed to anywhere else. Like, I mean, I know you lose the whole part of like there's a Forsaken and Ilian, but I mean that could just be mentioned anyway, and the whole kind of Dark Hound chase and everything could be moved somewhere else. The thing that kind of makes the big question for me is Legane, because we know that Rafe is such a big fan of him, and he said multiple times that he's going to have an expanded role in the series, and it's hard to see where it's going to be expanded in season 2.
Yeah, by the way, if they ever cut the blowing of the horn, regardless if the writers came up with it by themselves, everyone here in chat will blame me forever and ever. So if they ever cut the Shan-Chan, you're welcome. You can come back and blame David. High five over there. Really compelling, interesting idea. By the way, after the show, I'd love for you all to, if you're willing, post these outline notes if you have them, if you want, and that way fans can kind of look through any details that we might not have gotten to in the show. But yeah, I want to talk more about that. But let's move on from that, because I think there's a really interesting case to be made. Now, I want to ask everyone this, because it seems like cutting Bilal seems to be on the chopping block. I'm seeing lots of nodding heads in the panel. Does chat believe cutting Bilal is the right move here? So thumbs up for cutting Bilal. Thumbs down if you're like, no, we got to keep all the Forsaken. He makes a good villain. So, and that being said, over to you, Morgan. Now that you've heard these two ideas, I'm interested in kind of where yours is going to parallel them or actually kind of move away from them. So yeah, tell us what your thoughts were when it comes to breaking out a season 2 Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime.
Well, I think that some of the reasons that David came up with for why he wanted to cut the Shan-Chan was needing more time to focus on the Black Aja and stuff. And I think that they're actually going to do that in season 1. I was looking at the episode titles, and I think that the episode title for Blood Calls Blood, I think they're going to do the Dark Friend Social in that episode. And I think that they're going to do that, maybe even have Pat and Fane at that, like do it at a flashback. I think that they're going to probably explore Leandrin's dark friendiness in the Dragon Reborn episode, and get Elida involved there. I'm guessing that they won't have her be Morgase's advisor because that's too complicated, so that there will be a good bit of explanation and foundation for that, so that we'll just need to have like callbacks to that as opposed to like a lot of digging into it in season 2. So I don't know. I like having the Shan-Chan just because they're a big and important plot, and in the end they make it a lot easier because having them be able to divide up the continent so Rand only has to worry about one part of it is nice, so I think that it would be really useful to have Lanfear show up at the end of the first season. And I like the idea of having her be, you know, super creepy because, you know, Lanfear's the creepy cougar, but also have her be like ambiguous, like having her kind of running interference between Ishamael and Rand. So Rand doesn't really have like 3 battles with Ishamael, but more like she runs interference the first couple of times. And I don't have any problem with, you know, I went back and forth about having the Horn of Valyr because I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm not a huge fan of it because it doesn't have any kind of like background behind it. It's like, it's not a ter'angreal. It doesn't have any, you know, story behind what it actually is. So if they gave it some background and they made it a ter'angreal or some kind of story like that, it's a logical reason for them to follow it to Tome and Head. So I think that it would be worth keeping just for that purpose. My idea for how the story would follow is very similar to how Jen did it, as far as like having it start out in Faldara, start with the ships. I like the idea of the Aes Sedai going up the Aranon. I think that if they're going to say leave Caemlyn in episode 7 of the first season, have Moraine send that pigeon off to Swan, have Swan, you know, head up there so they can have that really tense, horrible meeting with Rand and Swan and Moraine and Varen, because that's such an awful scene. It would make really, really good TV. You know, have everything happen with all of the, you know, the fighting in Faldara, Fane getting released, and have it end with the Hunt leaving, and then have episode 2 start out with the White Cloaks out on Tome and Head, because you should be introduced to how horrible the Seanchan are right away. So just see, you know, their cruelty, how awful they are to the villagers on Tome and Head, and get your first interaction with Damani, whether it's just the villagers talking about them. So you're getting this first idea of, wait, there's these channelers, but you know what, and just kind of get that idea. And then start getting it, you know, Lanfear stalking and doing her thing. And so you're getting little glimpses of her as she's, you know, peeping on Rand, doing her thing. And then they get to the point where, you know, Egwene and Nynaeve are getting on their trip to Tarvalon. Egwene is starting to dream, and have them basically wake up in the mirror world, you know, having fallen asleep in the Portalstone Hollow, and have the second episode end with that. And then basically, I think that the third episode, they should do the whole stealing back the Horn of Valyr. That would be great TV, you know, that a lot of fun to have him doing all that kind of stuff. And it would give a great chance to have, you know, time in Tarvalon. And it should start right there with Elaida beginning to explore what's going on with Swan, what's she up to, and begin the build up for the coup that early, and just kind of get going into the politics right there. Meet Elaine. I don't think, you know, you're going to meet the Tricans before then, so meet her. And I'm still debating about whether we should just get rid of Gowan. I almost think it might be more interesting to just have Galad, since her relationship with him is more interesting anyway, and have him be her first Prince of the Sword. And you know, have that go on and have it end with them, Rand and everybody going into Cairhien and seeing the Chodon Call and him being all mesmerized by it. And then, you know, running into, you know, starting in the fourth episode with Moraine doing her, you know, whole Gandalf thing with all her, you know, books and everything. And at that point, catching up with Liandrin and knowing that she's up to no good, whether she's, you know, planning on stealing everything, and, you know, planning on attacking everybody in the tower and stealing the ter'angreal, having Varen show up. I like the idea of Gaul being the Aiel that they run into, because I think that most of the Perrin and everybody on the road chasing after Rand should be cut, because it's not very interesting, and most of that is just internal narrative from Perrin. And then you've got to have, or I think it's important to have all of kind of the intrigue in Cairhien go on, because Rand kind of kicking off the Civil War, I think, is interesting and important. So have all of that happen, have the horn stolen back, and then have Liandrin lure the girls out and end the fourth episode with Egwene being captured. And then
so right there, so like take us to the mid-season there, anything stand out to the panelists from Morgan's? It does, like you said, it kind of parallels a little bit what Jen was talking about there. I like that you're trying to streamline. Obviously, anytime somebody says some focus on Lanfear, I'm excited. But yeah, I like the idea of Lanfear playing a role here. But Morgan, you brought this up, which I think is important. You're saying in season 1 they might have already done what David's talking about in his version of it, which is if they have focused or set some focus and really dug into the Black Aja, I think you're right that you could then move on to the Shan-Chan and really focus with them. If they haven't, I think David makes a good point here, you know, and it makes it really difficult, you know. And so, Rebecca, if they haven't really dug into what the Black Aja is, and you had to pick between focusing on the Black Aja and the White Tower, or focusing on the Shan-Chan and their takeover of Falma, where would you want the focus to be?
I don't think you have to pick, because well, you'll see when you get into my outline.
Oh, gotcha. So you're answering this in your attitude. Okay, good.
Around, but but I have the Shan-Chan and Black Aja going on in the seasons. I don't think you have to pick personally.
Okay,
but,
so you think you can handle both enough? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
want to get into it.
I'm curious.
I'm just kind of curious too, like, you know, I really dig into like how Morgan's idea like might be different than Jen's. You know, like where are you different?
I really feel like Lanfear needs to be an ambiguous figure, you know, because it's sort of like she helps Rand a lot. She's just a creep and gross, and you know, so it's just sort of like, and having her be ambiguous that way, and I think having her run interference and kind of protect Rand from Ishamael at the same time, so he doesn't actually have to fight him until the Stone of Tyr, would be really useful, and almost like a scene where like Barney could blow the horn at, you know, while they're at Falma, and like Ishamael wants to fight him, but she ends up doing something where he runs away instead. And so Rand is, you know, like blazoned in fire across the sky. And so it's like, wow, there's the dragon, but he doesn't actually end up fighting him. Something like that, where it's just, you know, or he stabs him and runs then, or something like that. It would just be interesting. So it's sort of like, she seems like an ally, but what's her game? And she's just a creep.
I like the idea of playing her up, as ambiguous. That's an interesting point. So, what's your when it comes to now? You've gotten us to the halfway through. It sounds like you're not tackling as much of the Dragon Reborn as others have, but maybe I'm wrong in thinking that. Like, how do you? What's your broad sketch here of this last half of the season?
3 episodes, just like Jen said. You know, get the 5 episodes through the Great Hunt, and then, you know, and they should be mentioning Tyr throughout, like throughout season 1 and throughout season 2 is just like Tyr is where the dragon goes. You know, they shouldn't have like Dreams of Kalendor, nothing like that. So they should just do like a fast forward scene through the winter, you know, maybe like one of those kind of quiet where Rand is arguing with Maureen, all of that kind of stuff. And finally he gets fed up and runs, and they chase him, you know, and just so real quick, like, you know, the girls hunt the Black Aja, all that kind of stuff. Matt gets healed, you know, so that it's just everything really quick kind of set up. And Matt can have like his lucky night. I think that should happen in season 7, episode 7. Episode 6 should probably end with Matt being healed. Like the girls have gotten to Tar Valon, they've been punished, you know, they've been set up to chase the Black Aja, you know, all that has been set up. And then Matt has his lucky night in episode 7. It would be cool for him to wake up, like have that episode start with him waking up with all his weird memories, because that's just kind of a cool setup. And then he gets to Caemlyn to give the letter to Morgase and learns that Morgase's, you know, lover wants to kill Elaine. And so he has a reason to go to Tyr. Totally skip Ilion. There's no reason for anybody to go there. And so end with the girls getting captured by the Black Aja, and then the last episode should just be the showdown in Tyr, and have it end with the Stone of Tyr falling. Okay, so and it's so interesting and like you said, very similar sketch to Jen here. I like the tweaks though that are different from it, and you kept in Caemlyn, and this is one of the questions I have. Can we afford to go to Caemlyn and the White Tower and Falma and Tyr? That's where I'm wondering if they will want to do that. You know, as fans, I would love to have it all. If you had to cut
you know, if let's say Ray, if he, you know, he's like, you can only pick 2 of those 4 locations. Morgan, which ones would you pick if you had Camelin, the White Tower, Tyr, and Falma? Are there 2 you would focus on more than others in that kind of adaptation that you just did?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming they're going to have this the set for Camelin from the first season, so I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't go back there. You have to have Tyr because the whole, you know, the stone's going to fall. At which point, yeah, I guess if you had to cut Falma, but Falma's such a tiny little village, so it would be such a, you know, I don't think you would have to have anything really important for it to look like. It wouldn't have to be very nice. If you had to cut something, you could cut Kyrian, I guess.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, because there's Kyrian in there, right? Like somehow, you know, don't take us into Kyrian. Yeah, and that's an interesting point. And for people that are watching in chat, would you cut Kyrian out of the storyline here, at least for this portion of it, to, you know, fast forward us? If we couldn't go to Kyrian, the White Tower, Tarvalon, if you will, Falma, Tyr, and Camelin, would you cut Kyrian? That's an interesting one. David, are you a fan of? I know you actually kind of left that part intact, but let's say in season 1 they actually do address the Black Aja and dig a little bit more deeper than we think they're going to. Would you put the Seanchan back into your season 2 adaptation, or would you still kind of double down on what your, you know, target was there from your adaptation?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a way where it's cost, like they can do it, like then yeah. But I do think it wouldn't be in film. I think it would be all at Tyr. I just think it's just
gotcha.
It's two different peaks midway through a season, like from season to season, and I think it just wouldn't really make a lot of sense in terms of story to kind of have that peak and then just come down again and then have another one. I think Camelin. I don't think we're going to see Camelin for a very long time. To be honest with you, I don't think it's in season 1, and I don't think it's in season 2 either.
Oh wow, you would come back to Camelin later. You'd bring it back. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's. I'm one of these people that don't think it's in season 1. I think they're going to Tarvalon instead.
Gotcha. So you think they would end up being able to go back there and use Tarvalon, but then bring Camelin in maybe season 3? Is that what you're thinking then?
Probably season 4 or 5, maybe, probably.
Oh, wow.
It'll be a long way off, yeah, because they don't go back there until Fires of Heaven, did they not? So it'd be.
So you bring it in later. You'd have it just That's interesting. That's an interesting tweak. Jen, so have you heard anything so far in the other adaptations where you want to kind of like adopt some of the ideas into your own that you've heard?
I do like the whole digging more into the White Tower and the coup and getting into that a little earlier, because I do have Elida in mind, but I didn't have her doing too much. I think we do need to meet her, and I think that seeing her and Swan more than what I actually have is probably a good idea, cutting back and forth to the White Tower. I actually cut Camelin out of mine too, and I forgot to say I had Matt just going to Tyr with the girls and not going to Camelin at all.
Skipping the Camelin piece.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be in it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's an interesting question for people in chat. It's funny because there was such a strong reaction, by the way, against the Seanchan being cut, but it's kind of mixed between Kyrian and some of these other pieces. Morgan, any last thoughts that you didn't include, any like small details you want to include in your adaptation that you weren't able to express?
No, I don't think so. I feel like I'm pleased that everybody was kind of like, you can put both those books into the second season, because I really feel like The Great Hunt is one of my favorite books because it's so action-packed and it starts off with a bang. So I feel like it's got great material to make a really action-packed season. So I think it's good television, and they, I think whatever they do, they're going to do a good job. So I'm excited. Yeah,
I'm excited too. It's interesting. I didn't feel as confident about the idea of books 1 and 2 being made into one, but I feel much more confident as we're talking about it that books 2 and 3 certainly could meld into something pretty cogent. So that being said, Rebecca, you ready for yours? Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Let's hear what you have. I know I want to say that you sent me like something to throw up on the screen. Want me to throw that up now for fans to look at, or you can just tell me when you want me to show them?
You can, yeah. Let me explain a little bit,
okay,
so people don't get too fixated on that before I explain where I'm going. So
sure, yeah.
Week I went in a completely different direction.
Okay.
And so the things that I felt like pretty strongly about that kind of led me to where I went was that we needed to end with the Stone of Tyr falling, and everybody else did that too. So I'm with you there. But I did also feel that I did not want to have like everyone in Falma at the midpoint and everyone in Tyr at the end point. So I played with the idea of like, do you have some people go to Falma and some people go to Tyr, and then at the end they're not all in the same place? But I didn't like that, so I checked that out. So, so what I thought about too is that you have to think about, you know, all these characters that you have and how you're like balancing the actors that you need to, you know, make sure you have a story for. Because a lot of people have mentioned how like Rand isn't really in The Dragon Reborn, but that's not the only problem. Because if you look at like The Great Hunt, Rand has a strong story. A lot of other major characters don't. Like Matt and Perrin are kind of along for the ride, but as far as having a compelling story of their own, they don't. Maureen is barely in it, and so Lan is barely in it. And then there's a lot of similarities. Like if you look at like Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine, a lot of similarities with what they do in the two books. So having that repeat doesn't really work, just like having Rand fight Ishamael twice doesn't really work.
Right.
So, so I ended up sort of thinking of it as like, okay, taking these people's plot line from The Great Hunt and these people's plot line from The Dragon Reborn and just interweaving them basically, because all the characters don't have a strong plot in both books. And then even bringing in some stuff from The Shadow Rising, because I felt like we needed more of a strong plot in the Tower, you know, and thinking about characters like Swan and Logain and how they were going to be used. And if you sideline them, I don't think that the show is going to want to do that. So, all right. I don't know if like that was like enough general explanation and then start diving into the specifics, but
go for it.
Moving like the Shanshan to Tyr, moving the Horn to Tyr. So the whole like endpoint for people is all Tyr. You know, following more or less similar ways of getting there from one book or the other, you know, but they're all going to Tyr basically. And so like the Egwene and Nynaeve and their plot, you know, instead of them leaving the Tower twice, they leave once, and it's to go after the Black Aja, and they go to Tyr. But the Shanshan are there too, and the Black Aja, you know, sell them to the Shanshan there instead of in Falma. And so Egwene still ends up Damani, and it's in Tyr instead of Falma.
So quick question for you there. I know I don't want to stop you for too long, but would you have the Stone of Tyr have fallen to the Shanshan? In other words, would you have had them take the stone and have it that kind of be a repercussion in the world?
That's an interesting thought. I think that you could go that way. But then you'd sort of have to have it fall twice, and then you'd lose that prophecy. So I hadn't thought of doing it that way. That wasn't my intention, but
okay. So you'd have a Shanshan there.
The only thing that's sort of difficult about it. And I did think of, okay, well, maybe the Shanshan aren't in Tyr, the city itself, but they're near it, as a way of making that work out. So there's proximity, but they're not actually, they haven't managed to take the city yet, since that would be a bigger deal, because that's the consequence of moving that is that they're not in some, you know, sort of out of the way small place. They're in a major city. So maybe having them nearby, but not actually in the city itself.
Yeah, no, that's what I do. Sorry, I know I stopped you, and then just keep going. So I like what you're saying. It's interesting to see what people are saying in chat. But yeah, the idea of merging the two and bringing all the plots into one, you prevent that having to go somewhere, leave it, and come back notion.
Yeah,
like
bouncing back and forth. So you know, with that in mind, like I think it would help a lot if certain characters that need to be in Tar Valon start the season there, and that at the end of season one we see that either at the end of season one, or maybe they can do it in flashback, we see that some people have already left, and so that like we can start with certain characters already in Tar Valon and cut out some of the journey to Tar Valon in between seasons basically. And so like you'd have, you know, obviously Egwene, Nynaeve, Matt in Tar Valon, Min in Tar Valon, and then like, you know, Swan, and I'd have Varen in Tar Valon and have Maureen sort of take over parts of Varen's plot from The Great Hunt. and have her more involved, have Maureen more involved with Rand, have the season 2 be a season where Maureen isn't letting go of trying to control Rand yet. That can be for season 3. And
so I'm curious about that. How do you feel about that, David? If this idea of keeping Maureen engaged, because she does kind of, I mean, I want to say for 2 books, she's not that she's non-existent, but she's tracking Rand at some point, and then she's kind of off doing her own thing. Do you like the idea of swapping out some of that and leaving Rosamund Pike as Maureen as a kind of a central figure to the story in season 2?
Yeah, I do. I agree. That was one of the main things with mine as well, is that there's a lot of characters doing the same thing as they did in the previous 2 books. And some of them just going missing for big chunks of time. And Maureen is definitely one of them, especially in the Great Hunt. She's barely in it. And when you cast someone like Rosamund Pike, you don't leave them out of the second season. They're going to be in it a lot. So yeah, taking on part of Veren's plot, that's could be interesting. But Veren is a fan favorite as well.
I don't want to lose Varen. I love Varen, and I want her to be really involved with the Tarvalin plot. So I haven't really talked about that yet, too, but I want there to be a whole plot going on in Tarvalin, even after, I'd have Elaine and Egwene and Nynaeve leaving, midway through the season as they are heading to Tyr, but you'd still have other characters who are still in Tarvalin that are continuing the plot. So I haven't even gotten to this yet, but I want season 2 to end with Swan deposed. So I want that whole plot to happen in
season 2
from the Shadow Rising, because you can. So it keeps Swan more involved. It keeps Logain more involved as well, because otherwise, I mean, in the books, there's 2 whole books where he's just being sad in the tower and he's not doing anything, but you have Alvaro Morte and you've got to do something with him. So having Min stay, so that she can, be, having her viewings, and Swan's holding on to her. And so that whole thing can happen. And so Elida would be important. And I want Varen to be important in that plot line as well, to where Swan sees a threat from Varen because Varen knows what she's up to, and we have a scene where she confronts her, and so but then she doesn't realize that Elida is the real threat to her.
Interesting. Okay, so Jen, what are your thoughts here so far on this idea? So you're bringing in Swan into this, moving everything to Tyr, having Swan's being deposed. You have more of Maureen focus. Do you like what part of that so far, Jen? Are you pulling anything into your adaptation at this point that you like about that, or you think that those are the wrong choices?
I do like it a lot, and I like the fact of you saying you put some Dragon Reborn plots and some Great Hunt plots, because that makes sense. I was trying to figure out a way to get it all to Tyr and have everything happen to Tyr, but there was so many things that I couldn't wrangle. I was like, oh, he goes here, then he won't meet her, and things like Fail, I couldn't get her. It was very hard to get her in there, and so
on that, I was
clocks around, the girls going back and forth, it really doesn't make sense. It's too much traveling, especially from Falma to Tyr is the entire continent, and that's literally a whole book of traveling. So I do like that idea, and it makes sense to have the actors doing more that you actually still have. That does make sense.
So there's an idea that Nablus posed, and I want to throw this out to Morgan, and then Rebecca, you can respond to it also, and then jump in the kind of the rest of your thought here. But Morgan, Nablus suggested instead of having Maureen take on Varen's role and be more, he suggested that maybe that would be repetitive to what we've already seen in season 1. What if Maureen had more of a side quest? And do you like this idea of giving Maureen more of other things that are going on, and she's doing things, but she's still she's not with the main crew? Do you like that idea?
I do like it. Yeah, I think that would be fun, and it would be a good way to kind of keep her relevant while at the same time keeping Varen, which is, I mean, I suppose we could wait and bring Varen in later in the story, but I don't want to because I like her. So.
Right. Yeah, I think there's 2 options. I like both of them, which is actually give us more Rosamund Pike doing other things, like the world is bigger and she has bigger plans. Although I also do like keeping her engaged there, because Varen's section of that isn't that vital, honestly. You could say her Portal Stone moment, alluding to things going on, but not having her there to me doesn't like ruin the story itself. So I can see both taking it both ways. Sorry, Rebecca. Yeah, give us. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm
Yeah, go
so
ahead,
sorry.
Morgan. Yeah,
It seems like that they're making use of flashback though, and so if they did a reasonable amount of flashback in the episodes, you could use it that way.
Yeah, no, that's true. Rebecca, how would you finish that off? Like, because you told us the end, how you did. So how do you get us to the very end here then?
Well, I mean, just maybe now, like, I don't know if you can throw up the graphic if that's helpful, but like,
yeah, I can throw it up for you.
I mean, essentially, just to kind of like make it. I think there are different ways to do it, but in my outline, because I was interweaving so many different things, I did not try to come up with like a bunch of new ways to do things. I just basically thought of it as like, okay, for Rand, we're following his plot more or less from The Great Hunt. And I think there are things that you could cut out. Like I could definitely see like if they don't want to do Kyrian, there's probably ways to not do Kyrian. I kept it in just I didn't want to have to invent a lot of new things while I was doing this, but and then, and also from The Great Hunt, again, keeping the Shan-Chan, moving them to Tyr. So keeping that aspect of Egwene's story, just, in Tyr. And so in the beginning part of, Egwene in the White Tower might be similar, but the second half is going to be more the Dragon Reborn. And a lot of other characters, their plot is more like the Dragon Reborn. So like for Perrin, as he's like following, at some point, Rand gets separated and they're following Rand. You could do a lot of the things that happen for Perrin in the Dragon Reborn. They're still tracking the Horn, and they're tracking Rand, but he could still have those encounters that he has, like meeting Gaul and meeting Fail. And so a lot of the characters would follow more of the Dragon Reborn plot, like Matt, because he has a story in that book and where he doesn't in The Great Hunt.
Well, tell me this: are you the same way with David? Because I think David, remind me if I'm wrong, but did you have Fane? Did you have Fane in there going to Tyr? I can't remember if you left him in, and if that's where you were taking him.
Yeah, I'd take it. I mean, mine's quite similar to Rebecca's, apart from I just didn't have the Shan-Chan in it, which is a massive crime.
I mean, clearly to some fans, yeah, I'm looking forward to the comments after the video because I'm sure they're gonna like. But no, I actually want to entertain that idea later. Like I said, But is that where you're thinking, Rebecca? That Fane, are you leaving him in?
Yeah,
and would take the Horn basically to Tyr and go maybe to a High Lord or something.
Tyr, so we're moving like he takes the Horn to Tyr instead of. I mean, it can still be, again, he takes it to the Shan-Chan. So again, maybe not directly in Tyr, but nearer in that direction. And so he's still in it. And I should also mention, so I have Lanfear as like a thread throughout because if you look at the two books, like she kind of like pops in and she interacts with different characters. She's really just interacting with Rand in the Great Hunt, but in the Dragon Reborn, she's like interacting with Matt and Perrin and Egwene. And so I do want to keep that and have her in different guises, at different points, interacting with all those different characters. And then at the end of the season, you'd piece it all together that like, oh, all of these are the same person and it's Lanfear. So it would be more mysterious, and it would kind of come together to the end and you'd realize that, oh, this person is a threat. Yeah.
I like that. And it is interesting. Nablis just pointed this out in chat. So far, all of us have thought about smushing two books into one. Right? It almost seems more natural to everyone to have made that choice, and none of us made a choice like ending it somehow halfway between the two books. And it seems illogical to make the choice that you're just going to cover the events of the Dragon or the Great Hunt and somehow end in Falma.
I thought about it too. It's like carrying this forward. I'm like, well. You'd also probably do something similar. I would do something similar in the third season, and it would be books 4 and 5. Yeah. And we know what happens at the end of book 5 for a very important character. So like I had to kind of keep that in mind too. And that's partly why like I wanted Maureen interacting more with Rand in this season. Like this is the season where she isn't letting go, where she is trying to control events and to stay focused on him, and then so that in season 3 it can be when she learns that okay, I need to let him lead.
Yeah.
I think
say something,
I think in combining them, I think the reality is there's 14 books and there's not going to be 14 seasons, no matter how popular it is. And books 2 and 3, because of how similar they are, I don't think 3 could be a season on its own. Like 2 could be if you stretched it and dived into a few things, but 3 couldn't be. So what do? You stick 3 at the start of season 4. Sorry, if you start book 3 at the start of season 3 and then go straight into book 4, possibly you could do that. But really, this is the last chance that the show probably has to combine some of the books together for a good chunk of seasons until you get into book 7, 8, 9, and 10 and what have you. So it's probably a chance an opportunity that they'll take.
Yeah.
And
like maybe the last book is a season, but like most of in the middle, you might have 3 books in a season, or they cut out a lot of stuff. But
yeah, I'm gonna quickly do this. I know we're running down. We're probably gonna go a little bit over because I have some questions. I kind of want to dig in a little bit more. If you want to, today was gonna be harder. I wanted to hear from our wonderful guests and get their ideas. If we can probably take 1 or 2 calls. If you want to give us a call, it's 1-313-825-5968. If you have a different idea, you don't see 2 books in one season, give us a call, let us know. Or if you're reacting strongly against anything but cutting the Sean-Chan, give us a call. So I want to throw out an idea here of a way that they could get to Falma. Let's say we kept Falma. They could get there quicker. What about the idea, and this is the one I have, we already have the set, what seems like, and I'm making some assumptions here, obviously, what seems like we have the set for the waygate that's going to take them to Faldara. Like that seems like in some form or fashion, we're getting to Faldara and there's a waygate involved from what we've seen in the news and from the episodes and such. So my question is, they already have that built, so why not reuse it? And why not have Leandrin actually, when Maureen breaks off, let's say they keep that idea. The horn goes missing. They follow it. They split up. They go to the White Tower. On the way, Maureen leaves. And then we know that Leandrin and Varen leave. What if Leandrin left right then with Egwene, Nynaeve, and Min, and possibly Elaine? In other words, she somehow befriends them in such a way that they would listen to her or they believe her, and she takes them through the waygate that we already have. And by episode 2, Egwene is in Falma and she's captured, and so we get to Falma really quickly, and it changes the dynamics of the show right up to this point. Right, they've kind of mostly stayed together. They're not under a huge amount. I mean, they're under some type of danger, but this would completely split off Egwene really quickly. And again, we can use what they've already built to make that logical. Instead of having them go back to the tower, sit around for a while, and then end up using a waygate again to leave. So thoughts on that, of fast forwarding that plot?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what you're saying then is like we'd be done with Falma like a few episodes into the season, like maybe like 3 episodes in, and then you'd be doing mostly Dragon Reborn plot after that for the rest of the season. I'm
putting her in Falma by episode 2 and probably done through episode 4. Yeah, I'm saying if you did smush these 2 books together, how do you make it happen quickly enough that everything doesn't seem so rushed? Like get to the tower, then leave it. Go back to the tower and then go. You have them never even make it to the tower the first time. So when they come back to the tower, it's a little bit more of an experience that hasn't happened before. So
my problem would be more with like Rand's part of it, like having Falma sort of the middle of the season and have Rand there, but have it not be, it's not a moment where he doesn't fight a Shamael, he doesn't show up in the sky, like, and it doesn't make everyone know that he's the Dragon Reborn. Why is he there? Like, why is it really important for Rand if a lot of those things don't happen?
Yeah, so you could do, and you'd have to do a couple of things, and I know there's people calling it, but yeah, you'd have to possibly break Rand off and have him focused on Tyr and have the others focused on retrieving the horn. And instead of pulling Rand into Falma, where you're having him do yet another engagement with more Forsaken and determining that he's not really the dragon yet and he's going to find out, you could break Rand off of that plot line and have him going one way. In other words, split them up multiple ways instead of having them just as one group. And that's how I'd suggest even doing that. Let me bring in a couple callers. I know it's going to be tight here, but we'll try to get a couple in. Sorry, I'm not going to probably be able to take all the calls, but we'll bring in a couple here. So let's welcome to the show Doug. Doug, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing?
Good, Matt. How are you?
Fantastic. So, what's your question for our panelists?
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the idea of ending the season with Swan being deposed, because that's what I was thinking as well. Because I think that, the girls go to the tower once, and then once they leave for Falm, they don't go back, but Matt still needs to get to the tower to get healed. And so it makes sense to me that Min takes him. And that's how you can fast forward that. And I was just wondering how that impacts panel's thoughts on that, on being able to speed that up, because I really think, season 2 is going to be books 2 and 3. Season 3 is going to be books 4 and 5. And the more you can interweave different parts of that.
Yeah. So Morgan, to Doug's question here, deposing, Rebecca opposed this idea. Getting rid of Swan by the end of season 2. Do you like this? Is it too fast, or do you like the idea that they'd get there quickly?
I feel like it's too fast, but I don't know that just like my feelings necessarily make it like illogical. Part of me wants to like explore the like culture of the tower more and explore everything that's going on with Swan and Maureen. But if they spend some time with Maureen and Swan in the tower, so that they build like suspicion for Elida to dig into and make that happen. And if they also just had a discussion being like, we could get in so much trouble for this, there might be enough like of a foundation there, in which case I'd want more time to get invested in Swan, but maybe they give you that time in the first season. If they, we have like a young Swan and stuff, so maybe they give us enough time in the first season to get invested in her, in which case, it might be totally a good thing to do.
Yeah, I saw some people. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, to be clear, the way I envision it is second to last scene is Rand is the Stone of Tear falling. Rand gets Calendor. All of that's all over. Maureen turns to him and says, "Now the tower's going to back you." And then cut scene to Swan's study, and in walks Eladi and strips the stole from her. And then you smash to black.
Smash to black. That would certainly be a smash to black moment.
Great justice of position.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Oh crap!
Yeah, I love it. I think that one's gonna. We'll have to post some of these to social media afterwards. Hey, Doug, thank you so much for calling in. Sorry, I have to get you off here.
Yep,
and
thank you.
Grab some
I understand.
Great idea, man. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye. Yeah, that's that one's gonna. That one, cutting the Shanshan, that's going to be big here. Let's bring in just another caller or two to the show. Welcome, Master of the Deck, to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. How are all you?
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we're trying to stuff 2 books into 1 season, clearly. So what's your question or thought for the panelists?
Mostly I just wanted to call in to sort of congratulate the 5 of you for managing this task. I've said before that I absolutely do not envy the people who are in the writer's room of the Wheel of Time. Not because I don't think that they have a cool job, but because it sucks. And I can only imagine the arguments that have been had, about more than just Chesnall Emery, of course.
Right.
So, especially David for his brave choice of saying no to the Shanshan in this season, which, while I don't agree with it, is it's kind of out of the box thinking that makes these discussions interesting.
Yeah, it's a brave thought, and I think they could make it work. Whether or not they will is a different question.
Right.
I think it absolutely could work. But it would be, I think it would be
will
harder
buy
to build
almost
later,
anything if it's sold to me the right way.
Exactly. Well, before we let you go, what was your favorite twist that you heard tonight, as far as either a change or just a way that we're going to get there that you hadn't thought of before?
I liked the idea of trying to expand or more centralize Maureen's role, especially because, as Ben said, we do have Rosamund Pike. And while, book readers know that there's potentially going to be a Rosamund gap in the future, keeping her around for the second season and keeping her central to the events of that season, I think is very important for the viewers.
Yeah, I'm assuming around the panel here, we're all in favor. Are you all in favor of giving Maureen more to do, basically, that we see her do? Yeah, that seems to be universal. I'm going to ask chat that, hey, Master of the Deck, as always, wonderful to chat with you, and hopefully after the show we can chat. So
yep,
we'll
see you
talk
later,
to you soon.
guys.
Okay, later. Bye-bye. Jen, to that point, Maureen getting more screen time, does something come to mind where you find that she could be easily, they could give her this to do, and you would be in favor of it?
Like a specific thing that she could be doing?
Is there some subplot that you would give her other than just kind of being off screen?
No, I mean, I think she could also be investigating the different Forsaken being free and finding out that they're, without going to each city, somehow finding out, who's out and that they're all kind of taking over the different cities in different ways. I think that would be like a good thing for her to be investigating on the side.
Something larger than that. Yeah. Let me bring in our next caller here quickly. Hey, Kevin, welcome to the Dusty Wheel. How you doing tonight?
Doing fine. How about you?
Fantastic. Great.
Yep.
So what's your question or thought for the panelists?
So my basic thought for the seasons is for season 2, primarily book 2, but taking some of the elements from the beginning of Dragon Reborn, some of the less central plot lines that they could sprinkle in there to make season 2 mostly book 2. Then you can push the end of the Dragon Reborn into probably episode 3 of season 3, and then do the rest of Shadow Rising for the end of season 3. I think one of the really key and unique parts of Wheel of Time is the Battle of Falma, and I would personally hate to see that move to tier, though I can see the reasoning behind it. But I think another key thing, and it was kind of touched on, is the importance of Egwene being captured and made Damani by the Sanshin. And so I would hate also to see that being condensed into a shorter time frame if you're looking at trying to do both Great Hunt and Dragon Reborn into season 2.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I'm going to go to Rebecca on this one. Would you like it if they did spend more time and really made season 2 very much the Great Hunt, with maybe sprinklings of the other books in there, just kind of pulling in things that are relevant to it, and actually digging in and giving us one more mostly focused book as far as the Great Hunt?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were thinking about it that way, you're sort of thinking about the Dragon Reborn, as sort of a book that you just kind of like pull apart, and you don't really think of that as much as like a story that happens, because you're sort of like, you're pulling some pieces out of it. I don't know. I haven't thought about how that would work, like what pieces I would put in to season 2 so that I could leave, just a little bit of that for season 3. I mean, to me, like I've said, what was really logical when I thought about this is all the similarities between books 2 and 3, and how you can avoid that becoming repetitive by just not doing it twice, right? And just like having, each character take that trajectory that they take, Rand, on a journey and people following him, or the girls leaving the tower and, ending up captive somewhere. Like, those are just similar things that happen, and just don't do it twice. Just do it once, do it in season 2, and, kind of get it that far. And so to me, there's just so much logic to doing that it's hard for me to see it that way. But
okay, so then I'm going to ask everyone here in the panel a difficult question, and Kevin, and those in chat that are still here with us. And great, Nablus is back, fantastic. So he can hear this question too. So if you had to pick I know these are false choices, but we're going to make one. If you had to pick between getting the ending we see in The Great Hunt, as it is basically, or the ending we see in The Dragon Reborn, but you could not have them both, which one would you pick? And in chat, just write which one, book 2 or book 3 or The Great Hunt. Kevin, what's your answer to that? If you had to pick between them, and they weren't going to give us both of those, which one of those would you think is most key to the story and the characters, and would you want to see on screen?
I think the obvious one that's most key is going to be The Dragon Reborn ending. I feel like The Great Hunt is more iconically visual. So they might potentially lean into that because it is a TV show rather than text. But I do think overall Dragon Reborn, it's more central for, I don't know, it's hard because you get the battle over Falma with Rand and Balsam in the Sky, and that's where everyone starts hearing and seeing about Rand. But I think still overall, I'd have to go with Dragon Reborn.
By the way, it's a mixed bag in chat. So yeah, it's a hard decision. Yeah, I probably lean towards the Dragon Reborn in that regard if I had to pick. And like Hedsky just said in chat, both. Yes, that wasn't the choice. You got to pick. Hey, Kevin, thank you so much for calling in. Appreciate your comments and really appreciate everyone calling in tonight. I know it's been last minute, so we'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Okay, quickly, Morgan, which one do you pick?
Definitely The Dragon Reborn. It's very central, and I think you could make it really good television if you wanted to. So,
David?
Yeah, Dragon Reborn. I mean, it kind of caps off the whole kind of prophecy bit at the start, declares the dragon has been reborn. And in the books, it's like a real end to the kind of first chapter of books and the start of something new, which I think you need to have.
Okay, Rebecca?
Obviously, I went with more of a Dragon Reborn in my outline.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Elements of,
right.
The Great Hunt ending are in there, but I'd have to say the Dragon Reborn.
And Jen?
I'm going to go rogue. I'm going to say the Great Hunt. I know the Dragon Reborn is kind of more important to the story, fulfills prophecy, but I feel like with the Heroes of the Horn and the Shanchin, and it's just like Egwene, like going crazy. I just feel like visually it's like much cooler. So I would have to pick Great Hunt if I had to pick.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough choice, as I'm seeing some people point out, or I guess some people being Grenbliss in chat here. Grenbliss just said that he would go with, he thinks that having actually the Falma basically happen in Tyr would be the wrong choice. He'd hate that. So yeah, this is difficult, I'm sure, for the team. Rafe, those out there that are going through this. For those of you that watch this far and get into this video afterwards, please leave in the comments which choices of all the questions we asked tonight and what you liked, what you didn't, how you would handle season 2. I'm really curious in seeing people's broad maps and outlines for it. I hope that people start sharing these, and fans on social media will share them, because I want to talk about them, what needs to stay and go. All 4 of you have given me some fantastic ideas of what I would add to mine. I definitely love, if we're going to Falma, getting Egwene there quicker, though. That's my tweak to everyone. I absolutely think use that Waygate, use Leandrin, and get them there, and don't send them to the tower. Like you said, Rebecca, don't have this repetitive back and forth. I know that changes things, but thank you all 4 for being here tonight and for putting the time in to break these books down. It was awesome to chat with you. And by the way, if you're still watching, please go follow these wonderful people. They're all content creators, all talking about the Wheel of Time in their own special way, and you can find their links in the description below. And if you're still here, please like this video on the way out, and please give the channel a subscription if you haven't already. We love having you here at the Dusty Wheel. And for those of you at Watt on Prime that maybe are still watching, thank you very much for being with us. Hopefully you laughed and cried and enjoyed how we would do this as fans. There's so many variations, as you well know, and we can't wait to see which one Rafe and his team and you all end up picking. So thank you all for being with us another night here at the Dusty Wheel. Come back and we'll talk about Nynaeve on Sunday. I think that's everything. Remember, there's an after show at Discord, and you can find that link afterwards. If you want to come argue with any of our guests here that end up making it over there for the after show, come check us out at Discord. We'll have a lot of fun talking about this idea of 2 books and 1. And I really want to dig into this idea of the Shanchan being cut. So I'll jump in there, and I'm gonna go be the Sean-Chan cut apologist over in Discord and see what people have to say. So thank you, everybody. Sorry I couldn't get to all the calls of people that were waiting. Like I said, I can only take a couple here. Hopefully they'll give us a call back next time. So that being said, as we say around here, good night from the Dusty Wheel, and we will smash to black in just a second, because Taylor wasn't at his computer, and I forgot that I'm there to do that. So now we're...
Welcome to the Dusty Wheel.
Hey, welcome back to the Dusty Wheel. You went right to kill it. Look at you, you're all ready. You're just done. I mean, this is like this is one
really
of the
well.
biggest scenes.
And now I'm like, great, my turn.
And if you don't like that, and you want to say, well, Robert Jordan could have made the two rivers all white. He could have, but he didn't. So
Just complimented me on my dress, and as you can clearly see, I'm not wearing one.
I see Nakomi as something along the lines of a Shida Haran analog.
It does make sense why it outlasted the breaking.
Yeah.
See, this is why I have Therese in the show, because she's going to correct everything that.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dusty Wheel Show. What? Meme Off Challenge! Yay!
Like baby face mounted on like a huge body. So like all
This
of
is
a
not
sudden,
just
it's like,
a traditional fantasy, right? There are sci-fi And elements. just a moment for those that
Uh,
are kind of interesting. Rafe tweeted something. So let me get my guest in here with me. And
Probably, I would say, put in 70, 80% of the work. I got to be over the shoulder and be like, no,